Hi everybody, welcome back. It's your favorite professor, Dr. T. In this section, we are going to talk about proportions. So you have to remember all of your algebraic skills in order to do proportions, but you also have to remember fractions. Let's go. So we are going to talk about ratios. We're going to talk about rates and unit cost, proportions, and applications of proportions and similar figures. So, writing a ratio, writing ratios of mixed numbers and decimals, and applications of ratios. So the definition of a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Now you can also find these in your notes in your book, but look at the different types of ratios. A to B, the colon means 2. And the fraction bar means 2 as well. It also is a division symbol. So the fraction bar is a division symbol. So writing a ratio. The ratio of women to men. Write the ratio of men to women. And write the ratio of women to the total number of the people in class. Okay? So there are 15 women and 17 men. So you have to figure that out. So you can follow along in this PowerPoint, but write the ratio of women to men. It will be 15 women to 17 men. And then men to women, it's just the reciprocal. Okay, so you just flip the fraction. Now, when you want to write the total ratio of the women to the people in the entire class, you have to add the women and men together, and then you place the women in the numerator and the total number of people in the denominator. As an application, for a recent flight from Atlanta to San Diego, 291 seats were occupied and 29 were unoccupied. So you have to think about that. And then ratio of the number of occupied seats to the number of unoccupied seats. And so you have to start to visualize what that looks like in your mind, right? So occupied seats were 291 and the unoccupied were 29. So the number of occupied seats, 2, right? So the number of occupied seats would be in the numerator and the number of unoccupied seats would be in the denominator. So what you could do is start to work these out and then check your answer later. So now let's talk about writing ratios in lowest terms. So 15 feet to 10 feet, right? That's going to be 15 divided by 10, but you have to reduce the fraction. So writing it in lowest terms, 15 feet to 10 feet would be, well, what I think about it like this. What can I divide into the numerator and denominator that are the same number is going to reduce the fraction? So 5 goes into 15 and 10. And what do you end up with when you divide both of those by 5? You get 3 in the numerator and 2 in the denominator. And then you can't forget about the feet. And then with the second example, it's $20 to $10, which you just simply think $20 divided by 10 is going to be $2. So you get 2 over 1, and I'm actually surprised that they crossed out the units because in your homework, they don't actually do that. Okay, so here we go with some homework problems. We're going to start with 6.1. And our first problem is a step-by-step problem. It's kind of a guided solution. So for a recent year, 235 million persons were covered by health insurance in the United States and 45 million were not covered. Write the ratios as fractions in simplest form. So remember, you always have the option of clicking on an example and then you can see how they write the proportion, okay? So these examples are going to be very similar to your problem. And I'm using my very special program called Explain Everything. It's a little quirky. So we have 235, right? And we have a fraction to 45, I believe it was. And we need to put it in simplest terms. So you can use a calculator and start with what you can divide into both. But I have a wonderful calculator that does it for me. And it is called a TI-89. I don't think you're allowed to use this in this course. So you can use it to do some calculations, but you can't use it for your tests. If you want to get any kind of TI product, I recommend it. I love TI calculators. This one is the 89 and it is very powerful. Anyway, so I'll show you. You can kind of see how powerful it is. It does the fraction for you. So you can see it right there. It does the fraction for you. So 47 divided by 9. And then it says write the ratio of the number of uninsured persons to the number of insured persons. So you just flip the fraction. So that'll be 9 divided by, sorry, I gotta get the screen to show me 47. Let's see if I can, yeah, there we go. And then the next question. So as I said before, explain everything sometimes can be a little bit of a bear. So it won't let me go to the last part. So I'm just going to click on the example so you can see the last part. So the last question is write a ratio of the number of insured persons to the total number of persons. So I'm going to add the two together and I'm going to get the total. And then it says I want to write the ratio of the number of uninsured persons to the total number of persons. So mine was 235 plus 45, and that equals 280. And then of course you have to simplify, right? So for this one, it was 47 over 9. So that would have been 45 to 280. 45 divided by 280, which is 9 to 56. Okay, so that would go into the last box. You're gonna write the ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So you 2 over 5. Okay, so then you have a series of problems like that. And then you have some problems where you have to decide if it's actually a unit rate, okay? So you just select if it is or if it isn't, right? And then you have problems where you have to determine if it is a proportion. So I'll give you an example. So if I have 4 over 8, and I say, is that equal to 1/2? Well, if I multiply 4 here and 4 here, do I get 4 over 8? Yes, that is a proportion. So this one is not a proportion, so you need to select no. Finally, let's talk about solving proportional equations. So all you need to do is cross multiply. So P times 21 is 21P divided by 7, which equals negative 30. And then 21P equals 7 times negative 30, which is negative 210. And then you divide both sides by 21 and you'll get P equals a negative 10. So here you're just going to fill in those blanks like so and just continue until the end. And then one like this we would just have 8n equals 3 times 88. And then you just solve for n. And then you just solve for n by dividing 88. 3 times 88 divided by 8. And you can actually, that's an n, not an h, by the way. You can actually reduce it. So 3 times 11. So 88 divided by 8 is 11. So n is actually 33. And then when you get to a question like this, same type of thing. You just cross multiply and you get 9 equals 4 times x plus 2. And you just distribute for x plus 8. And you can rewrite it. I like my x's on one side, so you can rewrite it like that. And you end up with 4x being equal to 1 and x being equal to 1 over 4. Okay? Here we have similar triangles. So I like to make sure that I match up my sides. So 2 to the y side of the similar triangle, and it tells you that they are similar, is equal to 2. And you have to start with the other. You have to start with the original triangle side. So 2 to y is the same as 2 to 4. Okay, and then you just cross multiply, so I end up with 8 equals 2y, and then y is equal to 4. So this side is 4, and then you just pick, you can use the same side if you like. So you can use 2 to 4 is equal to 2.3 to x, and you just solve it the same way. And then lastly, we have percentages of numbers. So you can also look at the guided examples, but for this, and divide by 100. Okay, so it's 0.005. Going to multiply 0.0. You're going to multiply 0.005 times 354. And you get 1.77. So let's see if I can put that in here. Okay, so just go through the problems. Remember, you can use this step-by-step or guided solution, examples, your book, videos, whatever you need to do. And as always, thank you for watching. See you next time.